Warning. The following video contains strong language that some viewers may find offensive or disturbing.
What is the kindest thing you've done or seen? I was selling my bike when I was a teen for $30. Got a hit and set up a location. Ended up being greeted by two kids on a single bike, one on the pegs, and the kid with the bike bought his friend my bike so they could ride together. I'm epileptic. Once, during a school assembly, I had a seizure. It was pretty bad. 2. When I woke up, the first people I saw were my English teacher. And she was smiling and telling me it would be okay, and my health teacher, who was apparently the first person to run and get me help. I was in a super emotional state after the seizure. And I began to cry and say, "I'm sorry." I was hushed by my teacher and helped down the bleachers by them. My health teacher, my English teacher, my choir director and the school counselor all stayed by me until I got into the ambulance. My literature teacher also ended up sending me a very nice video of her and all of her family wishing me well. Another seizure I had, I was at a con, standing in line to get David Tennant's autograph. I was so excited that I had a seizure, and after I woke up I was wheeled back behind a curtain that was behind the booth. A moment later, David Tennant's agent came up to me and asked me what color pen I wanted. I was confused, but I said black. After he said that, he explained that David wanted to come back and make sure I was okay, which he did. The first thing he said to me was, "What are you doing falling down on me?" And he walked over and we had a full conversation. He asked my name, and autographed the book I had brought for him too. I got a picture, a conversation and an autograph from David Tennant. And this was big. I am a huge fangirl for him. All he wanted was to make sure I was okay. I reached out to dozens of people my dad has known and told me stories about throughout the years: cousins, relatives, co-workers, groomsmen, friends throughout his adult years, friends from childhood, and even from his recently deceased dad before he passed away. I asked them if they could share a memory or picture they had of him. I was overwhelmed by the responses. So many people wrote back. Even people I had missed but had heard about it through the grapevine. It was so kind of those people to dig through their archives and spend the time to do that. I compiled them all into a box and gave it to him for his 60th birthday. My dad and the rest of our family all really enjoyed reading the letters and seeing long-lost photographs. An older gentleman tried to ship an envelope to his grandson from a shipping company I worked at. The way he acted and the things he said threw up too many red flags in my head. So, against company policy, I opened the envelope after he left, and inside of it was 5 figures in cash. I called the cops and told them to get in touch with the man and try to figure out what was going on. As it turns out, someone had called the older man and said his grandson was in the hospital, and if they didn't send the money he would get a surgery that was badly needed. The older man couldn't get in touch with the grandson by phone, so he panicked and sent the money to the address they provided. We were able to stop it from happening and get the money back to him. He said it was basically his life savings. The story kind of got big and the news ran a story on it, and apparently it's a scam that happens to a lot of old people. We started this kind of club to reach out to nursing homes and try and educate people about it. And a lot of people were not aware of anything like that happening. A lot of good came from me just being nosy. I broke my foot while bouldering a week into my semester abroad. I had never been out of the country before, so I was absolutely panicking. A total stranger came right over after I fell, recorded important info for the paramedics, and spent the next 10 or so minutes while waiting for the ambulance asking me questions about my studies and my research. I'd mentioned I was a student. He asked such thoughtful questions and was so kind and able to calm me down even though I was absolutely freaking out. I absolutely love doing adopt-a-families during Christmas. I don't have kids of my own, but I really put a lot of thought into what to get them. These are low-income families, and I always ask for ones with lots of little kids. So I try to pick things that they can get a lot of use out of. I always get loads of books, especially ones where the parents can interact with the kids. Cookbooks, puzzles, Bedtime stories. I go heavy on science books and kits too. Especially for girls. Always gotta get a hula hoop. One of those huge life-size dollhouse castles you can color. And a ton of some sort of age-appropriate building blocks or Legos. I get piles of art stuff and paper. Coloring books. Painting sets. Jewelry kits. All kinds of crafty things. I get them some sort of diary or journal if they're older. Some place secret they can write their thoughts. My most favorite family of them all was single mom who just turned 18. Her son was 3 and she'd moved into her very first apartment. She had nothing but 2 bare mattresses on the floor. One for her and one for her son. She was working a job and was trying to save up for things for the house. Her wish list was heartbreaking. She wanted blankets for them both. A pan to cook with. And a Spider-Man toy for her son. That's it. I was single at the time supporting myself, so I only had a couple $100 to spend. I got her a complete comforter, sheet set, a pillow, and a full set of cooking pans. I found the coolest thing for her son though. It was a fitted sheet that turned your bed into a Spider-Man tent. It was awesome. And then I found a big Spider-Man stuffed toy. Like 2 feet tall. I also found this huge book with over 100 full-length bedtime stories. I got the usual boring stuff. Clothes for her son and a gift card for a holiday meal. But then I found at Target a clearance TV, DVD combo. It was less than $100. I knew money was tight, so I included a note in her Christmas card that she could rent her son videos from the library for free. I would have given anything to see their faces. I really hope she liked everything. I wish that it made a good Christmas for her and maybe made her first Christmas on her own a little more happy. I was talking to some random guy in the bar. And he said he was having surgery the next day and didn't have someone to pick him up after. I ended up driving him there. Sitting with him before he went back. Calling his parents when he got out. Sitting with him in recovery. Picking up his post-op meds. Driving him home. And making sure he was okay before I left. Never saw him again. And that's okay. Edit. Thanks guys. To answer a couple questions, dude was just grabbing a bite to eat before his cutoff time. His girlfriend had just broken up and moved. And his backup fell through. Guy just needed a hand. Seemed like no big deal at the time. In 6th grade, it was 2 stops away from my stop. A man was just laying on the sidewalk. Our bus was stopped for a long time. I noticed the bus driver wasn't on the bus and I looked outside and the guy was just laying there. Our bus driver is RLLY nice, so her being the nice lady she is, she rushes out of the bus. Check his pulse and calls an ambulance. The bad part was some people on my bus were talking shite saying, I bet he overdosed on something, and almost after that my mom comes to pick me up. Turns out the next day our bus driver said, the man from yesterday didn't overdose. He went into diabetic shock, or I think that's what she said, but she basically saved someone. I saw a neighbor boy practicing his jump shot into some tree branches in his front yard. I had a portable hoop in the back from when I moved in that was taking up space. So I walked over and offered him the hoop for free. I only lived there for the next year or 2. But it was almost non-stop basketball dribble next door after that. I saw him, his sister, parents, aunts, uncles, even a grandparent or 2 all take a couple shots at the hoop over time. It felt good to know his family got so much use out of it. One day after work I noticed an older lady struggling with her groceries at the bus stop. I offered to carry her bags and ended up walking with her to her house. The kindest thing anyone has done for me actually happened just the other day. I was explaining to one of my friends from choir that, since I'm no longer working, I can't afford to sign up for the summer. She immediately offered to pay for my term and wouldn't take no for an answer. Before I could finish thanking her, she messaged me saying that she already signed me up and paid because that's what choir moms do. There was also that time 4 of my colleagues pooled their money and got me a massage. I am truly blessed. Background: my family and I were homeless when I was about to turn 13. My youngest brother is severely autistic. We were standing in line for lunch at the local soup kitchen. which opened at 11 a.m. We had arrived at 6 in the morning, and were decently close to the door, only about 20 other people in front of us. My father had just returned from taking my youngest brother for yet another walk around the block. As he had begun fighting and stimming, and biting himself in frustration, after another few minutes in line, it was clear that he had more than reached his tiny 9-year-old limit and had begun to lose it. There was a couple of guys who were dressed in ratty t-shirts, jean vests covered in patches, and plenty of veteran memorabilia, mostly from Vietnam. Think those little ribbons or the Pau Mia patches. Each of them had either an old, dirty backpack or a trash bag which held all of their personal belongings in the world. One of the men, in a wheelchair and missing a leg, seeing my little brother's frustration and hearing my mother explain yet again that he had severe autism, rolled up to the 5 of us, 2 parents and 3 young kids, all sunburnt from the Florida sun with no place to call home, and unhooked his one treasured possession. He had a little stuffed monkey that was hooked onto his steering portion of the wheelchair. It was the only clean thing about the man, or really anyone else in line. It had a little vest like his, a tiny jean jacket with a small POW patch on its back. He gave it to my little brother, and my little brother immediately hugged it and cuddled with it, calming down. I'll never forget his words, "He looks like he could use it more than me." It was his one and only real, treasured possession, and he gave it to the little boy that was crying. Now, I'm in a position to give back, and I do whenever I can, if I have the opportunity. I help those who need it, but I don't think I could ever repay that single gesture. So I just try to live my life the best way I possibly can. My dad ran into an old high school friend he hadn't seen in years. He learned that the man had cancer, that he had no family except a son in college in another state, and that he was basically dealing with it all by himself. So my dad started taking him to his appointments and out to lunch. He even organized how to take his crazy number of prescriptions, since it was confusing to figure out when to take them when they all had different times and requirements. There were about 18 of them, I think, he said. Then, when his friend died, my dad helped his son do all of the end-of-life arrangements. My dad is my hero. He is such a giving person, and I strive to be like him. I was 16, driving over to my girlfriend's house on rainy Saturday afternoon. There was a man biking in front of me, and when he went to get onto the sidewalk, he completely ate shit. I pulled into the closest driveway and saw that his bike was mangled and his arm was bleeding. I threw his bike in my trunk, gave him my old sweatshirt for his bloody arm, and drove him home. When I dropped him off, he gave me his card. Turned out he was a dentist at a local research hospital. Well, fast forward to when I'm 19 and the same man took out my wisdom teeth for free as part of a research experiment. Not sure if there was actually an experiment that they needed wisdom teeth for, but just goes to show that good things happen to good people. One of the smartest people I ever met married one of my good friends from high school. She had dabbled in coding games for fun but had no IT experience. She was working minimum wage at a sandwich shop. I was a manager at an IT consulting firm. I knew if given the chance to work in IT as a developer she would do great. So I pushed my company to hire her as an intern. Without any code camp, relevant college classes, or experience, I was told our company could never hire her. I helped her start small user group, put together a resume, and prep for an interview. Then I went back to my company and forced the issue. I had to use a number of favors just to get her an interview. Then I basically cashed in all my political capital, and said if she wasn't successful I would be accountable for it. They gave her a chance, and she kicked a dollar just as I knew she would. That was 5 years ago. Today she is a Java developer making over $80,000 a year with full benefits. She loves her job, and my good friend doesn't work much because his wife makes so much money. Pushing so hard made a few people mad, and it was a contributing factor to the company letting me go a year later. I found a new job, so it worked out for me. I don't think she realizes what it cost me to get her in. And it's probably better that way, but knowing I gave her a chance to change the trajectory of her life makes me smile. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button. See you next time.